All right, we're here with CBS Sports college sports analyst, 2002 NBA All-Star, and 1999 MAC Player of the Year, Wally Szczerbiak. Wally, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. I can't wait for this big month coming up. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be a really special NCAA tournament. This year's been a blast in college basketball, and I think the NCAA tournament is going to deliver big time.
I couldn't agree. You're here with us on behalf of Great Clips and their Hats Off campaign. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and more importantly, how fans can get involved with the fun for March Madness?
Well, the Hats Off campaign for March Madness is really, it's special, it's interesting, and it's a lot of fun. As we all know, it's a stressful month for fans. They're hoping their teams are going to make the Final Four. They're going to be upsets in the NCAA tournament, so fans can be very disheveled. So they just throw a hat on, a lot of times supporting their team, but they don't want to take the time to get a nice haircut, possibly from Great Clips, mainly from Great Clips like I do, and show off that look. It gives you confidence. You go out into the world, you look people in the eye, you have a great haircut. I got my haircut just recently for March. I'm going to be on air 25 out of 31 days. I'm going to be on CBS and CBS Sports Network. So I got to take care of my look. I got to tighten it up, and I got to look good. And that's what Hats Off is all about for March Madness. Show off your haircut from Great Clips, be confident in the way you look, and don't always just walk out of the house a mess with a hat on.
That's right. Well, you're looking great. Great Clips did you right. So glad to see that. So you mentioned earlier you're excited for this year's March Madness, and March Madness is really built to give fans and deliver iconic moments. Like last year, we saw UNC and Duke face off in the Final Four, Coach K's final game, and North Carolina win and really get a leg up on the rivalry. For you personally, what are some of your favorite March Madness memories, both as a player and as a fan?
My first March Madness memories was when Georgetown was in the Final Four. That's really when I got into college basketball, the Patrick Ewing team that won a national championship, and then when Villanova beat them in the national championship game. Growing up as a kid, I was a huge St. John's fan. It's right around the corner from where I grew up on Long Island in Queens, New York. I knew a lot of former St. John's players. My dad used to work out in the summer when he came back from Real Madrid in Europe at St. John's gym. So I used to go to the gym. And those were kind of my first memories of March Madness. Then I'll always remember the big game, Duke against UNLV, when Duke broke their streak and won the national championship. I think that was 1991, if my memory serves me correctly. But those were my impressionable years growing up as a kid in high school, finding my way in basketball. And, I'll never forget those years. I was a huge Duke fan growing up. I had the Duke shorts as a kid. That was the school I kind of wanted to go to when I was in high school. Wasn't quite good enough, wasn't quite highly recruited enough to get to Duke. And it ended up working out great at Miami. But those are my memories, first and foremost of March Madness. And then as a player, obviously just being a part of it my sophomore year, we lost to Clemson in the first round. At Miami. We lost by about 10. They were really good that year. And I was motivated to get back and made it back my senior year, obviously. And we made it to the Sweet 16, beat Washington and Utah. So those are some of the most fondest memories of my career, college and NBA included. That run that we made in the NCAA tournament was just special.
Absolutely. And speaking of runs, one of the big stories last year was St. Peter's going on their run as a 15 seed. No one saw it coming. They started off by upsetting Kentucky, and then they just kept going until they ran into North Carolina in the Elite Eight. Doesn't have to be, a projected 15 seed, but what, mid-majors or smaller programs do you see having the goods to make that kind of run this year in the March Madness?
Well, I'm keeping a close eye on San Diego State. We televise pretty much every one of their games on CBS Sports Network. I think we have their game on either tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to be in studio. So I've been following this team. And it's the same core of guys for like the last 4 years. This is an experienced group. Matt Bradley, Nathan Mensah, guys like that. Coach Brian Dutcher has done a great job with this team defensively. I think that's a really good league. I don't know if you want to, they're not a true like small mid-major. They're more of like, knocking on the door. That league might get 3 or 4 teams into the NCAA tournament. So calling them a mid-major is a little bit of a slight, but I think that's a team that's poised to make a run in the NCAA tournament because they've been there before. They have a ton of experience, and They're a strong team. They're a great defensive team. And this year they're playing a lot better on the offensive end of the floor.
Absolutely. Yeah. San Diego State's defense, I remember watching them last year, and they busted my bracket a little bit. I had them going pretty far last year, so I'm excited to see them this year. So, that St. Peter's team, like I said, they fell in the Elite Eight, but the other interesting thing was only one number one seed made it to the Final Four last year. And we've seen a lot of that recently with the parity in college basketball. Right now, Jerry Palm at CBS Sports has Kansas, Houston, Alabama, and Purdue as the projected number one seeds. Which of those four teams do you think has the best chance to make it to the Final Four?
I would say Kansas. I just think going through the gauntlet of the Big 12, they're the defending champs from last year. The fact that Bill Self has retooled this roster, losing 4 out of 5 starters from last year's national championship team, is very impressive. Now, he's retooled with very good players. I mean, getting a guy like Kevin McCullough from Texas Tech, who's proven, I call him veteran in the college basketball world, who plays both ends of the floor. He's a great rebounding guard. Then you get a guy who's a projected lottery pick in Grady Dick, who's one of the best shooters in the whole entire country. I mean, you lost 4 starters, but you also gained a lot of really good players. He's starting to develop his bench. I think the Big 12 prepares you for the NCAA tournament because you can win games even when you don't play your A game. So I would say Kansas, of those 4, is the team that I trust the most.
I mean, they were the number one seed to make it last year. So, it would be fitting if they did it again. Staying on the topic of the Final Four, it hurt me a little bit to hear that you were a Duke fan growing up, because I was a North Carolina fan growing up. So, but North Carolina made it to the Final Four as an 8 seed last year. Which, team that's not projected as a number one seed, or maybe not, in the top 4 seeds, do you think has what it takes and is getting hot at the right time to make a run to the Final Four like the Tar Heels did last year?
Well, let me just clarify. I was a Duke fan growing up as a kid. Now I'm not necessarily. I love Duke as a program. I think Mike Krzyzewski, ran a phenomenal program. I think this year they're doing a great job at, the year after his retirement. I love Carolina also. I think Hubert Davis is doing a great job. What he did last year to get them really a half away from winning the national championship after coming out of nowhere and being on the bubble before the national championship was just an outstanding job. And we'll see if they can duplicate that this year. I think they can, because they have a very similar roster and they're starting to play pretty good basketball and get some key wins that they really need. I'm trying to think of a school that could come out of nowhere. Let's see. I would keep an eye on Kentucky. I love what Cal does. I think he gets his players playing their best basketball in March. I think that's the sign of a great coach. That's why, to me, the way the committee seeds teams based on the body of work, I think you have to look at the way teams are playing in their conference. Once conference season starts, that's when teams need to be judged. And Kentucky's starting to play some really good basketball. They're beating some really good teams. I think since they made a few lineup changes, you want no part of going up against that length and athleticism defensively all over the floor at every position. So Kentucky's a team that's going to be very underseeded, and I would watch out because they could make a run. They have Oscar Tshiebwe coming off that, knee surgery in the non-conference, and right before the season, he's starting to, show that he's 100% healthy and play great basketball again like he did last year. So watch out for the Wildcats.
That would probably be my pick too. They went from being on the bubble to being pretty much a lock right now. So you mentioned a couple players throughout all of this. CBS Sports always runs one shining moment at the end of the NCAA tournament. And I always have kind of looked at it as like a short film, to kind of recap the March Madness and what happened. If you were going into casting one shining moment right now, who do you think are going to be the stars of one shining moment in March Madness this year?
I would say I'll give you a starting 5.
Perfect.
I love Jaime Jaquez. He is one of my favorite players in college basketball. That guy has got so much grit and grind and skill, and he does everything to help his team win. I mean, he is just absolutely outstanding. I'll go with Marcus Sasser. I think he doesn't get enough national attention. He should be a first-team All-American the way he's playing with Houston. That team defends. That team's as good as any and has as good as any of a chance to make it to their hometown, to Houston, to the Final Four. I'll also go with Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, this guy is just must-see basketball TV. explosive dunks right and left. I mean, dunks with his right hand, dunks with his left hand, jumps off 2 feet, jumps off his left foot, jumps off his right foot. And he's just an electric player that's been at Indiana for a while and has that program in a great place. Mike Woodson's done a phenomenal job coaching that team and doing a great job with them. Then I'm going to go with Aiden Mahaney out at St. Mary's. He's a little bit unknown, but he's a special player. He's a freshman. He's the guy that scores all their clutch crunch time buckets, runs the pick and roll very well. He's like a basketball savant with the plays he makes. Keep an eye on Aiden Mahaney coming out of St. Mary's. That team's very underrated. That team could win a couple games in the NCAA tournament. And then last but not least, I'll go with Jordan Hawkins from UConn, an outstanding three-point shooter. He has one of the most beautiful strokes in college basketball. He's a real key to that UConn team, who's obviously great defensively, but he's the guy that needs to score and needs to knock down shots. And I think he's a special player. He's played great all season long, and I think he's got his best to come coming up here in March Madness.
Absolutely. I'd take that starting five any day, you know. And last thing before we go, I've got to ask, and we don't have the bracket, so it's a little bit tougher, but do you have a national champion pick right now?
My pick would be Kansas to repeat. Okay. I think it's wide open. It's going to be so much fun, and that's what I love about college basketball. I think it's in a great place. I think anyone can win on any given day, and on a neutral court, there's going to be a lot of madness and craziness. I've just been very impressed with the way that Kansas team has responded to when they did struggle and have that 3-game losing streak in the Big 12 in the middle of the season. They bounced back to looking like they're going to get at least a share of the Big 12 regular season title. And I think that league really prepares you to win in March and to win in the NCAA tournament, because you have to be ready every single night you put those shoes on and tie those laces. And that's what it takes to win all those games in the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. Well, Wally, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Everyone, please participate in the Great Clips Hats Off campaign. Show off those locks during the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be all over social media, and we're going to be handing out prizes to go to the Final Four, either men's or women's, the Final Four weekend, and also the national championship game. So get those pictures out there and show off your Great Clips haircuts.